Through various outreach activities, I often have a chance to talk to K-12 students about the impact of computing in their daily lives. As this slide notes, there's benefits of a diverse education. So students will study English and learn about different authors and learn how to write themselves, but they may not become an English major in college, but there's still value in understanding how to communicate. Also, students study mathematics and science throughout high school and their whole K-12 curriculum, but they may not become a scientist or mathematician, but there's still value in understanding that. We think it's also very valuable for students to understand computing. For example, it's very useful for students to understand how an internet packet moves, how the underlying representation of information is stored, just as much as it is to understand how a frog is dissected or certain laws of physics. Because in computing, students are working with these devices and the effects of computing on their life in a daily occurrence. So if you look at the slide here, software is everywhere. So there's many places where students often will understand software as being relevant in their lives, from video games to movies and other kinds of things that they may do for entertainment. But software also is in other parts of our lives where we may not realize that. So software is in other places more than just a desktop or laptop computer. So we find software in automobiles. The Mercedes S-Class has 80 million lines of code. The new Volvo SUV, the XC90, reportedly has over 120 million lines of code in that car. And even this morning when I woke up and shaved, my electric razor had over 20 kilobytes of software. My microwave oven had software in it when I was cooking my breakfast. The anti-lock brake system in my car, the fuel injector, those things all contain software. And you think of a modern TV, the amount of software in that, or avionics, you can see that software is everywhere, and therefore we need people in our industry to be able to create that software. This slide describes some things that Bill Gates noted as possible intellectual opportunities that students can explore in computer science. He says in this quote that the software industry is going to make more breakthroughs in these next 10 years than it is in the last 30. And software then will also be the kind of driving force for the next big breakthroughs in many other areas. For example, a recent Nobel laureate in chemistry was a computational chemist. So people are being able to take ideas of computation and apply them to many different areas of study. One example that we talk about in the South, where I'm from, is the effect of tornadoes. So we even look at tornadoes and try to understand how computing might play a role underneath the hood of reporting of the news and different weather patterns. So if you look at this slide right here, you can see that there's Doppler radar stations all over the US. Someone had to write software that's able to understand and interpret the signals that's coming in from the Doppler radar. Someone else also had to then write the software that can visualize and understand those signals and be able to present that in a way that a local weather person can describe and understand to the general public. So in this case, computer scientists can even play a role in saving lives by the software that they develop, from being able to take those initial signals and relay that back to someone who may be just sitting in their living room and trying to understand the effect of an incoming storm. We also believe that computer science is the one area where a young person can make an impact on the world in an early age. As you note here, these two stories on this slide, there was an occasion where a 14-year-old was able to knock off Angry Bird. Angry Birds is the most downloaded app. You know, imagine any other industry where someone can do that from their parents' basement. You know, you can't knock off General Motors from developing something in your parents' basement or some other large company. But with software, you can do that even at a young age. And also the sale of Sumly to Yahoo for $30 million. And these were teenagers who were doing that. When I often visit some tech companies, it's always the young folks who are there and making those great impacts. Just take as an example, YouTube. So YouTube is over 10 years old now. And if you can see, this is the location where YouTube got its start on the upper left of this slide. And YouTube started out, I believe, as a dating service, and then it eventually evolved into the video sharing service that we know now. But YouTube was eventually able to sell themselves to Google for over $1.6 billion. So that's just three of the early developers who on paper are worth $500 million overnight. So there's a lot of opportunities, not always at this scale, of course, but the ability to make impact. And not just monetarily. Think about the satisfaction that someone would have from creating a device or a piece of software like YouTube in terms of the impact on the world. So not only the money, but also the impact and the satisfaction that comes from that is the desirable trait of computing. We also try to make students aware of the effects of computing and impact by pointing out role models that they can relate to. For example, in Alabama, we have two tech leaders, Jimmy Wales, who founded Wikipedia, and Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple. We often try to find such mentors and various folks from computing who've done well as role models that the students can look up to. So you may want to think about or find out role models from your community who had an effect in computing and just point those individuals out to your students. So in this case, Jimmy Wales went on to found Wikipedia, one of the top 10 used websites in the world. And of course, Tim Cook now at Apple. And we also tried to find role models for young women and other underrepresented minorities. So there's various women IT leaders. If you look at those from Yahoo to Facebook, we have women who are in control and have very powerful positions and can also balance life and some of the different concerns that they may have. And so we always try to point out those leaders who are women. And we even do that in our own context in Alabama by mentioning Dr. Nan Bowden. So Dr. Bowden is one of the new directors of Google Engineering, and she grew up in Alabama and went to school at my university. So we always try to find such role models who can serve to inspire those who may be wanting to get into computing. And students who are from underrepresented minorities, we also try to find role models that they can identify with. For example, Aston Motes, who created much of the underlying architecture for Dropbox. If you've seen some of the code.org videos, McKinday's often quoted there and shown in some of those videos as role models for the IT industry that young students who are African American can also look up to. There's been many studies about computer science as one of the top jobs in America. So if you look at the slide here where the STEM jobs will be, this study is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the National Science Foundation, and other industry trends. And it points out in green where the jobs are and where they're not, and then also points out where the degrees are coming from. So you can see, for example, computer science, where the green bar is, there's more jobs than there are students. So we want to make sure that our students understand the opportunities that exist. Example here, the demand for computer scientists. I went off to the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and I typed in several desirable characteristics that I was interested in, and the BLS site returned back 8 or so jobs, and you can see that 5 of these jobs actually involve computing. So the demand for computer scientists is in all of the recent tech magazines and newspaper articles. U.S. News and World Report just recently named computer science or software developers as the #1 job in America. In fact, out of the top 10 jobs, 3 of those jobs were computer science jobs. In March of 2015, Forbes and CNN Money Magazine named their top 20 jobs. 5 of those jobs were computer science. #1 and #2 were computer science jobs. So there's a lot of opportunity for students studying computer science. There's a study also by Georgetown University here where they went and looked at the different number of jobs that are described online and advertised, and computer science had the large majority of available jobs. From a national outlook, the National Association of Colleges and Employers does a yearly survey or exit poll of students who are graduating from college, and they monitor things like number of job opportunities, number of interviews, and number of job offers, as well as salary information. Computer scientists have consistently received, as students, the top 5 salaries. And we've also had the one major that received the most number of job offers. So our students are averaging almost 3 job offers per student. And there's some jobs or some occupations or majors where our students are not getting any even interviews. So computer science is very helpful in terms of placing students. If you look at Stanford University, computer science is one of the top majors there. And at Harvard, the CS50 class is one of the top classes at Harvard. So very bright students understand the role that computing is playing. One other thing that we do, in addition to going back and looking for role models and mentors, is to try to contextualize computing in your own local region. So for example, Huntsville, Alabama, and the state where I'm at, is pretty much a strong tech center. In fact, the National Science Foundation said that per capita we have the 4th largest concentration of STEM workers. So we try to point out opportunities for jobs, the impact that those jobs can have, and all within the local region in which those students might live. So one of the things you might want to do is look around your state or your region and try to find opportunities like this where your students can, within your own region, make a deep impact. I also encourage you to go to the NC-WIT webpage and look up your own state statistics. So right here on this slide you can see the Alabama statistics from NC-WIT, which they've done some studies to try to estimate the number of job offers that are in each state. In Alabama we're only producing about half the number of students at our colleges and universities that we have jobs for. So there's a deep opportunity there. So the big idea of impact is very important. In fact, it's a cross-cutting big idea that you can cover in many of the other sections of your course. And understanding from the very beginning the kinds of things that students can do is very helpful to them in getting excited about the course and being able to really have a passion for the things that they're about to learn. So make sure that the opportunities and impacts are being discussed throughout the whole year, not just in one slide. But this particular video was just designed to show you a few things that you might want to talk to your students about. All the slides for this are available, as well as extended slides, some topics I didn't cover here, but you can also download those off of our resources in the course.